Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Changing Gears with your host, Chris Kieran. Today, I am with Malang Susso. Malang Susso fights for Combat Zone. He fought a couple of weekends ago, and I'm going to ask him some questions. So, yeah, just getting right into it. After your fight a couple of weekends ago against Biladu, how are you feeling after that fight? And what kind of lessons or thoughts have you taken from that fight that you're going to carry into your next?
I was a little frustrated, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not one to make excuses or anything, so like I kind of kept quiet about it. But actually, the day of weigh-ins, I made a couple phone calls and I lost all three of my cornermen that I was
Okay.
working with the entire duration of
Hmm.
that camp. One was in the hospital with kidney stones, another one caught a virus, and then another one, like some car issues. And it was crazy. It's something I've never experienced before because
Yeah.
it was like the best weight cut I ever had, the best camp I ever had, and then for that to happen, usually it's vice versa. Everything is set in stone. The day of the fight, but I have a hard cut. Things are a bit slow. Maybe the last 48 hours, but everything was perfect up until the last 24. So honestly, it was a good lesson though. Nothing. I don't want to take anything away from Richard either. He was honestly really good. I'm proud of myself for dealing with the circumstances at hand and still going 5 rounds. My first 5 rounds at that. But it you know coming out of that fight. I guess it taught me to expect the unexpected, I guess. It's
Yeah.
the fight game. So
Yeah.
like it's never gonna be smooth sailing. So just gotta be prepared for any and everything. So
Right, and, for people who don't know, we actually saw each other right before weigh-ins. We were
yeah.
trying to get into the arena, but we were both a little confused, but, how was the weight cut leading up into the fight? How did you was it anything?
Awesome, dude.
Yep, okay.
It was awesome. I can't I'm not gonna sit here and like blame my performance on like the weight cut or anything like that. It's hands down the best weight cut I've ever had. So much so that, after talking it over with my coach and my nutritionist, the move next is to get a catch weight bout at 60 or 65 because I stopped cutting weight at 71 the day before and I weighed in at 168.5. So
Mhm. Yeah,
I floated, 2.5, 3 pounds,
right,
you know. So it was a great cut though. I
right.
can't.
Yeah, and do you have another fight lined up yet, or you kinda is that still in the works?
Yeah, it's a weird thing where I I'm on my end, I'm good to go. September 6th. September 6th, sorry. And in my hometown, that was a little bit of a tongue twister right there. But
Yeah.
in my hometown, yeah, I'm fighting for a dead series. They're just waiting for my opponent to
Yep,
get back and the camp to get back. But I guess they've been in talks with them, so
okay.
we'll see.
And do you wanna keep fighting for Combat Zone? Is that a promotion that you really
Yeah,
you like?
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. I would. Yeah, I just want to fight a little closer to home. And
right.
then, if the opportunity presents itself in like November, December, sure. I've fought in like the New England area. I train out
Mhm.
there, I train in Connecticut. My main gym is in Jersey, but like I go to Fighting Arts Academy in Connecticut under Nick Newell. So I'm familiar with the New England area. So like I would definitely fight for a combat zone again if the opportunity came up.
Yeah, and how did the crowd make you feel? And, what was the environment like walking into this new arena just fighting for Combat Zone?
It was just another night. Like
Mhm.
honestly, like the mental aspect, it wasn't like the crowd or being in unfamiliar territory that kind of messed with my head. I think it was just you know everything I was dealing with in terms of my team and like everything falling apart, kind of like in the locker room. But in terms of walking out into being you fighting the hometown guy. That type of stuff doesn't bother me. I don't really care about that.
Yeah,
It
right.
was cool meeting. It was cool meeting Calvin.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of him, so that was dope. But you
right.
know,
Yeah. And this is might seem like an odd question to a fighter. So I want to ask about your amateur career, and I want to see if you have any kind of unique perspective on your amateur career. Is there any way you view your just your amateur career? Do you view it any certain way, or do you treat it a certain way? What when it comes to your amateur career, how do you treat it? And obviously, you're gonna treat it like your professional career, but do you view it maybe as like a training ground, kind of a playground to experiment with different techniques, different fighting styles? Just explore what you're good at, find your strengths, the weaknesses. How do you view your amateur career?
um, I try to take advantage of any opportunity I get. I'm I don't have any name in particular, but there's guys who they'll stat pad their amateur record, and before you know it, they're 6-0, 7-2.
Hmm.
They're world beaters,
Yep.
and I don't have like a terrible record, but I also don't have the best of records. I'm 3-2, but I mean, I just fought a dude who was 4-1, now 5-1. Um, Prior to that, I fought a dude who was 5-1, and now it's 5-2. And I took that fight when I was 2-1. Um, so I think when promoters and matchmakers look at me, and this again, this isn't directed at anybody in particular, but I think that people think that they could get off on me, where I'm used as a feeder, or like maybe not the guy that someone would want to build up.
Hmm.
But you know, I understand the business aspect of it, but I don't care. Like I will still
Hmm.
fight anybody,
Right.
I'll still fight all the best guys, because my plan is
Right.
to go pro eventually. So you're gonna see the best guys here, if they pan out, we're gonna see each other at the next level. So I'm not gonna duck anybody.
Right. And you want the big challenges, the bigger opponents, because eventually you hope to see them down the line, so you can kind of say, "Hey, I'm back, better than ever, and I'm
You know
taking
what
the
I
W."
mean? Like,
Yeah, right. So,
there's no point fighting the guys from the McDojos, man. No point in fighting the guys from
right,
like
right, right, right.
so.
And kind of branching off of that, is there anything your amateur career has kind of shown you, or maybe something you've a big takeaway? Is there something you in specific or in particular that you've taken away from your amateur career so far?
I gotta go
And
back down.
right, yeah,
I gotta go.
right,
I gotta go back down, man.
yeah,
I was when he hit the hip toss on me, he hit two reversals on me, and I got back up, and I was fine. I was like, whatever. Like I think I took my time to get back up, but it's just I didn't want to rush position, and that was whatever. But the real takeaway from the fight is when we were in the 50-50 clinch positions up against the cage.
right.
Because even when I would have him, back up against cage side, I was like, "What the fuck? Like,
Hmm.
this is
Right,
a big guy right here. Like,
right, right,
this is a heavy dude, So, um, yeah, I didn't have to think too much about it. After that, I was like, yeah, I got to go back down, So,
right. Yeah, and this is more of a maybe maybe a little off topic, but what are some of your or who are some of your inspirations in the combat sports world? Whether it's a professional or maybe someone around you, like family. Who are some of the biggest inspirations when it comes to your career and life in martial arts?
I'm a big. This is gonna be very like what's the word? Contradictory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm a big Ilya Taporia fan,
Mhm.
but my favorite fighter of all time is Alexander Volkanovski.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a big fan of Sean Brady as well. I like the shorter, stockier guys. Fighting the taller dudes. I'm a big Volk fan.
Mhm.
I like the inside leg kicks. I like the no switch the no switch lead leg
Mhm.
kick. He does a lot of stuff I like to implement. Ilya, his aggressive style, getting inside in the boxing. That's something I'm working with my coaches on a lot, and it's a style I really like. He's awesome to watch. So.
Right. And what's your prediction for this weekend? Taporia
Uh,
versus Oliveira.
I'm a big fan of both, man. I like them both a lot. So I've told my boys this. This is a fight where I'm just watching as a fan. I'm just gonna sit back and just I don't want to predict for either to lose, man.
Hmm.
It's
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned some kind of highly ranked welterweights. What did you think of Kamar Usman versus Joaquin Buckley? And what do you think
Buckley.
about, yeah, what do you think about Buckley?
Oh, dude, Buckley's awesome.
Yeah,
I like Buckley a lot. I think people underestimate what Usman has left in the tank. Um,
for sure.
I
Yeah.
think people on paper they just say Usman lost, but if you
Right.
watch those fights, he took Shemaev 3 rounds. You know what
Right.
I mean? And arguably could have at least took that fight to a draw.
Right.
So,
And what do you think about Colby Chaos Covington?
bro, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. I've never really been a fan. Um, Honestly, the reason being kind of ties into what you were talking about before. I just think with the fighting thing, like you just got to be yourself. At least for me, like
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
I can never be somebody where we're just talking like this, and then I don't know, you see me somewhere else, and I have sunglasses
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and I'm, like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not my thing. More
Right.
power
Yeah.
to him. It works for him, but that's just not my
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So, kind of getting back on track, are there any shorter term fights, or is there any fight you're aiming for in particular at the moment? Is there maybe someone who is kind of in your sights, or are you just kind of letting whatever is next come next? But is yeah, what are the shorter term goals, and then maybe some longer term goals for your amateur career?
I just want to get back on track. You know, catch a win. Not even just catch a win, but I want to win in the fashion I know I'm capable of. You know what I mean? I feel like for the opportunity I was given at the end of May, for Combat Zone, I really didn't live up to my standards. Because even if I were to perform to my abilities and I still lost, I would be content.
Hmm.
But that was really just my feet were kind of just stuck in the mud that night. So I just want to come out my next fight and just fight the best guys and perform at the best of my abilities. It doesn't really matter who. I'm not a big I'm not the person to call out people. I don't really care.
Hmm.
As long as you have a good record and you're not fighting bums and you could push me to my limits.
Yeah.
I'll run it with anybody. It is
Right.
what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So
So there's no maybe particular name that you're looking at right now, or are you looking to go back and get some revenge in your previous losses, or are you just kind of again just like you said, just getting back on track and just letting the
uh,
wheels?
I fought one of my losses. The dude went pro,
Hmm.
and then the Bilodeau fight. I mean, like my plans are to go down. I'm sure his plans are
Yeah.
probably to kind of stay at 70.
Yep.
And I'm not delusional. Like I could sit here and say, well, I didn't perform to my abilities. He beat me
Hmm.
in pretty dominant fashion. So it's I can't sit here and talk about revisiting a rematch. And also, I'd be a hypocrite because someone wanted to rematch me immediately as an amateur, and there was also like a little bit of like telephone being played, so like I'm sure his words were maybe twisted up a bit, but I'm not a believer in immediate rematches as an amateur. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
just
Yeah.
you just fight the best guys, and it is what it is. You win, loss, you learn something, go back to the drawing board, fight another good guy, win, loss, whatever, back to the drawing board until you're ready to just make that next jump. But there's no need to, you know,
Right. Yeah. I get what you're saying. There's no need to like kind of like what we were talking about or what I said. A lot of guys they'll just treat it as just an area where you're getting better, you're growing as a fighter. So there's really no need to kind of revisit things or revisit particular fights just yet. Just keep
Right.
getting better. Just keep, you know, fighting the best guy that there is, and just
100%.
building off of that.
If it
So
was a situation where maybe, I don't know, two fights from now, fights from now, I've cleared all of my fights and I can't get anything booked, and then I don't know, maybe vice versa for him and I can't get anything else, like
right,
sure, but
right,
like I'm not a crybaby, you know. I'm not
right,
gonna
right,
cry for a rematch because I lost. It is what it
right.
is, you know.
Yeah. And how did you get your start in combat sports and martial arts? Where did this journey start for you, and what's really keeping you going?
I've only been training for 4 years. I started right as the pandemic was like kind of coming to a close. I was in like a bit of a transitional period in life. It was weird, man, and I was going through like a lot of stuff, like mental health wise, and being like I guess like depressed. I
Mhm,
started becoming like overweight,
mhm.
and I don't know, just a very like just a down point in my life, and my best friend, pretty much my brother. I'm actually at his house right now. Um, he got me into jujitsu, and then from there, I started getting into kickboxing and Muay Thai, and then from there, kind of putting the two together. And I live in a pretty small area. I live in Poughkeepsie, New York, so it's not really known for combat sports.
Mhm.
It's a very black and white type of town in terms of the direction you go. It's either blue collar, go work and make your money, or it's very white collar, go get your degree, go into the
Yep.
workforce, etc. But nobody's it's very rare, like someone has to like kind of slip through the cracks in terms of like chasing something bigger than just the dollar. And
Mhm.
I don't know, like the getting into the sport changed my life, so I kind of just took a shot in the dark and started cross training out in different states, but still close. Like out in the
Right.
the border of like Connecticut, and I'm in Jersey now. Um, I'm going to visit a homie of mine out in Delaware. At the beginning of July to go get some cross
Mhm.
training in, but yeah, I just take it serious now. Just because it changed my life, and I hope to I mean, I'm only an amateur, but like I hope to be the person from my town that I don't know, maybe I inspire somebody else who is in my position at some point, maybe dealing with some things, or especially men, because
Right, yeah.
we don't have it's how do I put this? It's a very touchy like area, I feel like,
Yeah,
in
for
terms of
sure, for
expressing
sure.
yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's important that we have those outlets, and
Yeah.
mine was combat sports. So I don't know, want to
Yeah.
motivate people, inspire people.
Yeah, no, definitely, especially as a man, it's tougher to, like you said, kind of voice your emotions, voice, struggles that you're going through, because you're expected to, just power through it.
Yeah,
We
you got responsibility being providers and
exactly,
whatnot.
right.
Yeah,
And
I'm
would
the
you
oldest of four, so
yeah, right, yeah. And would you touch on, if you feel open to, would you touch on maybe some of the struggles you had? You mentioned like a transition period.
yeah.
Would you mind kind of diving into that, or is that a
No,
touchy
yeah,
subject?
yeah. It's it's just life, like
Right.
at the time my mom was like really sick,
Mhm.
and I was getting out of like my first real like relationship, and then also at the
Mhm.
same time I had just lost a good friend of mine. We had just graduated high school. He had just passed
Mhm.
away, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, man, it was just a weird time, man. And
Yeah.
I'm 19 years old. I'm trying to
Mhm.
trying to figure myself out. I was
Right.
playing football up until this point, and I finally decided that that road was no longer for me. So it was just weird, man. I felt almost like, I don't know, like a lost cause, and it's tough
Yep.
because, like I said, I'm the oldest of four.
Mhm.
So I feel there's also that extra layer of responsibility. I feel like, where I feel like I have to you know make my mom proud and make sure that I'm
Mhm.
I'm being productive and adding value to the world. And for a while I didn't feel like I was doing that, so I was just in my head a lot.
Right.
It was a weird time, man, a weird time.
Right. And you feel like combat sports maybe helped you bridge the gap from, those struggles and that transition to, maybe the point you're at now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%, because it gave me like a sense of purpose.
Mhm.
I, I get up every day, I train, I run, I'm lifting, I'm marketing myself. I'm always trying to find a way to propel myself and put myself at the next step, try to put myself out there, get myself
Yep.
better opportunities, connect with promoters, connect with matchmakers, talk to my coaches about what it is I could do to get better in the training room. Like, it constantly keeps my brain going,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's never really time for me to just chill and
Right.
be in my thoughts about life.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. And what do you want your future in combat sports to look like? Looking maybe through, or if you had a crystal ball,
yeah,
what do you want your future to look like in combat sports? Are you looking to, make it to a big promotion like the UFC, Bellator,
yeah,
PFL? Yeah.
yeah.
So what?
Well, RIP to Bellator, but
Oh, that's right.
all
Yeah. Right.
right.
Um, but yeah, what do you want the future to look like for you in the world of combat sports?
um yeah, I want to make it to the biggest stage that I can, like I said, I want to make it to the biggest stage that I can, because I know there's a lot of people who don't think that it's possible for me. I come
Hmm.
from the middle of nowhere to most people. Like, I'm from Poughkeepsie, New York, in the
Hmm.
Hudson Valley. Like, 9 times out of 10, people don't they've never heard of here before, or I've spent my last 2, 3, 4 fights fighting up a weight class. Um, I don't have that appeal to me, or like when you look at me, I don't have like that look where it looks like, yeah, he's gonna be one of those guys. So to
Right.
me, I want to make it to that next level, and I feel like I will make it to that next level. And I feel like I have a lot to prove, and a lot of people to prove wrong. So I just want to be that guy that, again, inspires people from the small towns, or coming from, like the underdogs.
Hmm.
That's what I consider myself. Every time I step in the cage, I'm the underdog. I'm always stepping into, you know, unfamiliar territory. My opponent's the hometown hero.
Hmm.
You know, I'm always, the smaller guy a lot of the times. I'm not taken as serious. So it's one of those things where it feel good to make it, to kind of
Hmm.
be kind of like that poster child for the people that are trying to do things bigger than, the normal.
Right.
So
Yeah, definitely. And what are some bigger names, maybe in the UFC, that you would be honored to fight someday? What are some fantasy matchups you may have?
yeah, I mean, like, in an ideal world, like, I would love to fight my goat. I'd love to
Mhm.
fight Volk, but like, he's long gone by the time I make it there.
Mhm.
But if we're talking names, like, in an ideal world, I make it there in, I don't know, like, I don't know, 10 years or something, right? Like, let's
Mhm.
say I'm at the peak of
Yep.
my um 155, and it's tough. A lot of them are old, man.
Right,
a
yeah, it is
lot,
tough.
a lot of them are old,
I didn't
but
think this question through.
if we're playing pretend, Justin Gaethje,
Mhm.
um, Fiziv's another good one.
Yep.
Um, Ludovic Klein. I don't know if you're too familiar with guys maybe ranked at like 15,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yep. Yep.
yeah, Ludovic is another good one. Um, just someone that, like,
Mhm.
I could get into a war with. I,
Right, right,
I,
yeah.
I,
Yep.
I don't know. I don't. I'm. all my homies and like some of my teammates, they like joke, I don't move my head enough, and I take hits and shit. But I think the war is fun. If you're
Right.
gonna
Yeah,
train
definitely.
hard, like obviously you gotta. I'm not trying to become like Michael Chandler at like
Right.
36,
Yeah, yeah, right.
but the wars are fun, man.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
definitely. Yeah. I'm as long as you win, right?
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right.
I'm not trying to take damage and lose. That sucks. But
Right, right. Um this is kind of a funnier question, but what do you think about John Jones's retirement? Do you think we missed?
happy, bro.
Yeah?
Happy. Happy. I'm ecstatic. I'm not a big Jones fan. I'm a huge DC fan actually.
Okay.
I'm a huge DC
Yeah.
fan. I'm not a big Jones guy. He's just weird, man.
Yeah,
He's just
right.
weird. He spent a lot of time outside the UFC while Francis was still hunting him down. And
Right.
then as soon as Francis left, he pops up and is calling Francis out. He ducked Rumble.
Mhm.
He's just a weirdo, man.
Right. And do you think we kind of missed that John Jones or yeah, the John Jones Tom Aspinall fight? Do you think we missed it?
Nah. I think this is my take on it. I think the UFC messed up by making Tom defend the interim belt in hopes that Jones would fight, because what you did is you've had Tom beat Volkov, beat Blades. He hasn't fought Gon because Gon was ducking him, but Aspinall's pretty much beat all these top five guys, and you've now left him with nobody to
Mhm.
fight.
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I mean, there's I mean, you got Gone, but besides that,
Eh,
he's beaten everybody else, so
You know what I mean?
it's
Like
tough,
like
yeah.
Volkov's put together a nice little run again. So like
Right,
maybe,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Pereira goes up, but I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. It's weird. Heavyweight's in a weird position, but
definitely.
I also think I think it's an athlete issue as well. Like
Mhm.
I think heavyweights are just like, yo, I'm just gonna be fat as shit and just slug it out. You
Yeah,
know what
right.
I mean? And Aspinall, he does strength and conditioning. He's eating salad while Patty Pimblett's drinking freaking milkshakes. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like, and so he prioritizes his body,
Mhm.
and with the mindset of an athlete. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Heavyweight's in a weird position. I'm curious to see what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. So, yeah, I mean, that's it for me. Thank you so much for, joining me, and I'm
Yeah,
rooting for
this
you.
was awesome, bro.
Yeah,
I
of
appreciate it,
course.
bro. Yeah, this was awesome. Maybe we chop it up again right before my fight, sometime after.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, everybody, that was Changing Gears with Malang Suso. Catch you guys in the
Thank
next
you.
episode. Bye.
Thank you for having me.